Hello, everyone, and welcome. We'll call the meeting of the Madison City Commission to order for the meeting of November 19th, 2012. Jeff, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Delzer.
Here.
Commissioner Erickson. Commissioner Waldner. Commissioner Abraham.
Here.
Mayor Hexum.
Here. You have the minutes of the November 13th meeting as a part of your record. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes of the last meeting?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the minutes of the November 13th meeting as prepared. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. You have the agenda for this meeting before you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to add an announcement at the end of the meeting regarding next week's meeting and a possible bond resolution that might be included.
Okay.
I will make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the agenda as amended. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Under appearances, acknowledgements, and correspondence, we have one item, and that is to acknowledge the Planning Commission minutes for the meeting of November 13th, 2012.
Make a motion to acknowledge the Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we acknowledge the Planning Commission minutes as presented from the meeting of November 13th. Chad, do you have any additional comment on that, or?
The only comment is, they just met last week, so they haven't had a chance to technically approve them, but they do give an indication of some of the discussion.
Okay.
On some of those topics. So.
Okay. All in favor of the motion then, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Under old business, we have three items. Number one is the second reading of Ordinance 1530, water rates for the City of Madison for the year 2013. I have had no comment or feedback, pro or con, on any of the water, sewer, or electric rates that are under consideration. I would ask any of the commissioners to comment if there's been anything there. Okay.
Make a motion to approve second reading of ordinance 1530 for water rates.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the second reading of ordinance 1530 regarding water rates for the City of Madison for 2013. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Number two would be the second reading of ordinance 1531, sewer rates. And again, I've received no comment.
I would make a motion to approve second reading of ordinance 1531 on sewer rates.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the second reading of ordinance 1531, sewer rates for the City of Madison for 2013. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Old business number three, second reading of ordinance 1532, electric rates for the City of Madison for the year 2013. Again, I've received no comment from anyone.
Make a motion to approve second reading of ordinance 1532 electric rates.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the second reading of ordinance 1532, electric rates for the City of Madison for 2013. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Under new business, we have several items of new business. Number one would be the first reading of ordinance 1534 on fences. And Chad, I think we'll go directly to you on that for a short review.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may make a few comments about the next 4 ordinances as they're all pertaining to the zoning ordinance, then I don't have to repeat the same for each, save you all some time. All these 4 ordinances are zoning changes. There's been, the minutes from the planning commission are included in the agenda packet, which have been acknowledged, where they have discussed those and recommended approval of all 4 of these ordinances as they are included in the packet, as they read in the packet. And that has been a hearing of the planning commission. This requires first and second reading of the ordinance now before the city commission, and the second reading is what the commission has typically held as their public hearing. There needs to be another public hearing with that as well. And so that's sort of the same with all these items. Specifically to ordinance 1534 with fences, this is a revision to the fence ordinances to allow full height solid fences on corner lots only in one of the 2 front yards. And the yard, they're both called front yards technically. One would appear to be a corner, but by definition, they're both front yards. But this would allow it in the side, the front yard that's not where the main and the primary entrance is. It would also could be said as the side yard. And so, and also in the rear part of the lot, away from the front of the house. There's also, that's the main intent of the ordinance. There's been, the language essentially does that by creating an A and a B under the exceptions, under the fence construction limitations. So that essentially is what is intended to do there. And the reason that this is coming forth is this past summer, the Planning Commission approved 3 variances that were almost identical to this type of situation. And we've always maintained that when there's variances of similar or identical circumstances, that maybe we need to look at the ordinance and determine what's the reason for the ordinance. You know, is this something we should look to change so people wouldn't have to keep coming in with variance applications? And they reviewed it, and thought it suitable to recommend approval to the city commission of this revision of the ordinance. So so that's what's before you. I would propose a slight revision to the ordinance, and I have copies of those here. Take one, pass it around. To add some additional clarity, when I was looking at this a little bit more, I certainly understand the intent, how it could have been enforced and administered, but there might have been an opportunity for some additional clarity to be added to make it clear that we don't want fences between the right-of-way and the front door, so somebody could essentially surround their house in effect. And so that's what these, I would propose to add these 5 words in 3 different locations, as shown in the green on the handout here. And it does, the intent is to simply say that fences cannot be in the required front yard space, but also in any additional space that's provided, because it talks about required front yard, that would be, you know, 25 feet in most residential, for example. But say a house is set back 40 feet, there would be an additional 15 feet where somebody could fence in, you know, all the way around their house with a solid full height fence. I should have, if I didn't mention that earlier, this is only again for solid full height fences. And so the idea with these additional 5 words in these 3 locations are to make that clear that we don't want that fence, regardless of the setback of the existing structure between the front door. We don't want a full height solid fence in that area. So I would propose for your consideration, an amendment for the first reading, prior to the first reading of that.
Really, you wouldn't even have to amend.
Because we have a new copy.
It's a first reading, it's a new copy. So you don't have to amend, you could approve it based on what you've just been handed out.
As amended? No?
It's not.
No, not amended,
It's not amended.
no,
It's-
okay.
You just
As
have another
presented.
ordinance in front of you.
Yeah, you just have this ordinance in front of you. You can
Or as,
treat-
as revised?
No.
No, not even that.
You need to treat the one that was originally in the agenda as if it weren't there.
Right.
You need to treat this as if it was just handed out. I know the media's been given a copy as well.
Okay,
And it's, I drew a sketch and shared a sketch with you earlier and to try to show this, 'cause it can get complicated, but, you know, I'd be happy to answer any questions or further elaborate on any sketches I've provided if you wish.
Make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 1534.
Second. We
Motion-
didn't set readings.
2 weeks
And set readings for 2 weeks from tonight, which is the,
tonight, which would be what,
December 3rd.
December 3rd? Okay.
for December 3rd.
Monday, December 3rd, okay.
Second.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded that we approve the first reading of ordinance 1534 regarding fences. And the second reading will be held on 2 weeks from tonight, Monday, December 3rd, 2012. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. New business number 2, first reading of ordinance 1535 regarding definitions. And this also concerns definitions for front yard and side yard, correct, Chad?
Yes, sir. This, if I may, is cleaning up some, what I would call some inadvertent language that was included when we updated the ordinance in '09. First District helped us with that, and some of this language was somewhat conflicting with other sections of the ordinance. And so what the amendment is cleaning up that language, getting rid of what was never the intent or never enforced anyway. And it also goes hand in hand with, you know, this fence ordinance that you just gave first reading as well.
I would make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1535 regarding definitions and set second reading for December 3rd.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. We approve the first reading of ordinance 1535, definitions, with the second reading to be December 3rd, 2012.
I should also note, Mayor, that for all these ordinances, it'll also be published as a hearing for that second reading too.
Sure.
Just so you know.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. New business number 3, first reading of ordinance 1536, alternative planning commission members. Chad again?
Thank you, Your Honor. This change is intended, or addition, excuse me, is intended to provide the Board of Adjustment only, not the Planning Commission here, with additional folks. The first alternate being the City Commission ex-official member of the Planning Commission, and then another person that may be appointed by the mayor as a second alternate. And the reason that we had brought this forth is with the Board of Adjustment, with 7 members on the board, if there's any case that has to be approved, it has to be approved by a supermajority, 2/3 of the members, which is 5, and that's of the board as so composed. So it's, you know, if somebody's gone or something like that, one member's gone, or two, worst case 2 or 3, you could have a quorum, but you wouldn't be able to technically approve it. And so we just wanted to provide the public with a full opportunity to have a full board present in case of absences by any of the planning commissioners acting as the Board of Adjustment. And the method was discussed quite extensively in the planning commission meeting, was utilizing the city commission ex officio member as the first alternate and another one to be appointed by the mayor. The second alternate perhaps also, should the mayor appoint one, could also be a person that may be able to step in with a vacancy, on the planning commission as well. So it may be some training perhaps as well, could serve an additional ancillary benefit or function. So that's really the intent of that ordinance there. And again, that was also recommended for approval by the planning commission.
So the alternate members, if this is approved, Jeff, would only apply to Board of Adjustment proceedings. Is that correct?
And that's the only one that needs the supermajority. We could go either way, quite honestly. When I worked with First District to help draft this, and we could just go with the full-blown planning commission, but those are simple majorities that are needed and such.
Okay.
I didn't want to take as much time, if you will, of these alternate folks, if possible, so because it's quite a commitment, learning and studying these things, and so we limit it to just the Board of Adjustment. We thought that would be acceptable, but it could go either way. I mean, if you have a strong preference to say, hey, maybe we should just make them alternates on the Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission, as you know, also functions as the Board of Adjustment.
Sure.
So, but this is the route that we opted for.
Can you explain to me just the process there? Like how often we need the Board of Adjustments compared to just the Planning Commission?
The Planning Commission meets the second Tuesday of every month, unless there's no agenda items. And so the Planning Commission takes care of items such as this, hearings for ordinance changes, or if there's plats that need to be reviewed, or any other questions or comments about the comprehensive plan, or the zoning ordinance in general, and such like that. That's the Planning Commission. That same group makes a motion to move into the Board of Adjustment. Then they switch their hats to function as the Board of Adjustment, which is, and David can add anything I leave out here, as a quasi-judicial body. And what they do is they turn into judges, so to speak, when somebody wants a variance or a conditional use, to determine if what's being brought forth, again, the variance or the conditional use, if it meets the guidelines set forth in here. And there's a separate appeal form that anybody who wants a variance or conditional use needs to fill out, and then to get onto the agenda. And so that's a little bit of a distinction between the two. And then, of course, they make a motion to come out of the Board of Adjustment, and then they're back into the regular Planning Commission.
That's, so in this particular case, it would be kind of that you would have them attend all the meetings, or you just notify them when you know the numbers are gonna be so low?
That's a good question. What we would do is, Diane in Jeff's office is the recorder, and we correspond with the folks to find out what they anticipate for the attendance, unless there's an emergency. So we have a pretty good idea going to Board of Adjustment meeting, and if we were gonna be short, we would let the first and second alternates know, and they would, for example, they would be in the crowd, so to speak, when the Planning Commission convenes, and they'd go through their business, and then they would make a motion to go to the Board of Adjustment. So I envision they would physically get up and probably come and sit at the table and be one of the jurors, I guess you could say, or hearers of the case, while that part of the meeting is ongoing. And then if they move out of Board of Adjustment, they would be done, and the Planning Commission will continue to function as their.
Will you have them serve in the event that someone discloses a conflict, or only if someone is unavailable to attend?
I anticipate either, both, or either.
So an alternate doesn't count against the overall number, meaning, if there's 7 and you need a supermajority, an alternate can just step in?
I would probably defer to David. We haven't talked about that, but I would say, yes, because once you convene the hearing, those are your folks that are hearing it. In the other sections about the Board of Adjustment of the ordinance, the other sections, they lay out the makeup of the board, and they say it consists of 7 members, and they shall be the Planning Commission, and so on and so forth. So that wouldn't make it raise the number, would it, David? I would think.
Does it change our Board of number of
That's what I'm wondering, so you can,
Yeah, but what you start with, what you convene with, is what you're gonna have to finish with. In my opinion, the only legal snag here is you can't start a hearing with one Board of Adjustment, have somebody be sick if there's a continued hearing or ongoing hearing on the same issue. Whoever you convene with, you stay with.
Right. And that's kind of what, Commissioner Erickson was also at this meeting, and as an attorney, he made some comments similar to jury. You know, we have alternate jurors.
Right.
Maybe one question related to that, David, is if, I can't envision this ever being the case, but would there ever be a time when, say, you would have the alternates sit in consideration? And then, you know, say if there would be 8 there at that time, I would say probably not.
No.
So you'd only have the 7 at one time.
You'd have 7 at the most.
Okay.
Sitting here in any one thing. I mean, you can't prevent an alternate from choosing to come if they want,
But they couldn't.
but they're not going to preside
Right.
at any point, unless they were convened to do so.
Right.
so I guess my only other concern is, and this is kind of tied back to the reason we moved it to this point, is I'm somewhat concerned with having somebody just hop in halfway through the process. And the way I look at it is the process takes years of knowing what we're building. So that's why I kind of like the way we have it set up. Part of the reason I was happy to take it out of the commission's hands is because a commissioner can hop in, decide today it's a good idea to do this, hop back out, and it can screw up years of planning and trying to have uniform, all the uniform rules that we have so that neighborhoods are, you know, set up the same way, and all the reasons we have our ordinances. So, I mean, I understand why we're doing this, but it does concern me somewhat if we have to bring in 2 alternates into, you know, of the vote of 5, 2 can sway it pretty heavily when they don't have all the previous history of why we got to where we are at that point. So that's why maybe I would be more apt to have them be part of the whole group so that they're studying it. Because if you're an alternate, the chances of you showing up, these are morning meetings, right?
Right.
7 a.m.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're an alternate, there's a pretty good chance you can come up with some decent reasons to show up only part of the time, and most likely you're not gonna show up at all until you're needed, and then you're not gonna really, you know, if we pick good people, yeah, they'll study the issue, but you still can come in and say, you know, that sounds like a good idea, and not realize why all the other stuff that's been built into it, why it was that way. You know, why the garage isn't allowed to be 4 foot in front of every other garage on the block, or why we're not allowing to have a house that big on that small of a lot, those type of things. So, that's my only real concern, why, but I guess I haven't taken the time to think about what the ramifications are of making the committee larger by adding 2 more people, so.
The advantage that you have, I think, to just having them be on the board is that the Board of Adjustment will deal with very specific issues and very specific findings. So they might not have to have that large breadth of
Okay.
knowledge or history that you might want on a planning commission, where someone knows the long-term plan, has maybe been a part of the long-term plan. You could drop somebody in to the planning commission with no knowledge of the long-term plan and ask them to make a decision on a long-term issue. Whereas on the board, I think it's gonna be very specific, it's gonna be really a finding based on already existing language in ordinance. So it's the counterpoint to what you're saying.
Okay.
You certainly all have the vote, I don't, I'm just trying to give some general
and that's-
thoughts and advice as this goes forward.
And I haven't worked on that board, so I'm kind of at a loss
Chad?
on knowing how
Doesn't some of this come from the fact that Board of Adjustment, you need a majority of the members, not the members present?
Yeah. right.
So when
That's-
members
that's
are
what it
not
is.
there, it's like a no vote.
Yeah,
It's a
well,
super
I
vote.
understand why. If somebody's waiting on a variance,
Right.
and, you know, we don't want to make them wait another 30 days, just
So
because we
a
couldn't
not-
be there. so.
Someone not in attendance really goofs things up.
Yeah,
With
I
you
completely
guys,
understand that
just a
portion of it.
Majority of who's here.
Of who's
Two
here.
out of- 2 of you could.
But when you need 5 of 7 votes and you only have
Exactly.
5,
Exactly.
it has to be unanimous.
Now,
Yeah.
my question is, could that be changed?
No.
So it's a majority, is that a state law?
That's state law.
Okay.
That's right. What you could do tonight, if you want to keep all of these moving on a first reading basis, is you could approve it as is, And you could certainly come back on second reading and make it planning
Well,
commission as
that-
well,
that'd give me
if you
s-
chose.
No, I think that's a good idea. Let's keep it moving, and I can address some of my concerns before second reading. That's why we have this process, so.
I would like to take an opportunity to answer him. I would also agree with David, though, to the, this is a case that's presented, that they're making a judgment on the facts before them. They're theoretically not supposed to be taking into account or receiving any
Other information.
outside of the hearing, and they're gonna make a judgment on what's before them. And so I would submit that. The other thing, one of the first alternate being the commission liaison. They're here quite frequently already, and they are receiving the planning commission and the Board of Adjustment information. So they do have a certain level of background built into that. That would probably help,
I guess the other one, rather than going with somebody new that hadn't learned it all, I'd feel more comfortable with somebody who maybe's got off the board and doesn't have the time to invest, but can show up maybe in an emergency situation. But I understand. I think that answers my questions enough, and if I have any more, we've got some time here for me to.
And the mayor can certainly consider one of those,
Yeah.
a former member. And we will also share with them, the packet and the binders and such, so they have, yes, they won't have had the background and such, which it can be useful, I'll be honest, I think it can be useful in those decisions, but it's not, like David had indicated, I don't think it's absolutely necessary.
Okay.
But, thanks, that's good points, and I appreciate that.
I'd like to approve first reading of ordinance 1536, alternative planning commission members.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the first reading of ordinance 1536, alternative planning commission members. Any further questions or speaking? This second reading will also be on December 3rd.
Correct.
Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. New business number 4, first reading of ordinance 1537, conditional use for hospitals. Again, Chad?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. What this is, I would call this more of a housekeeping item. The only zone that currently has a hospital in it right now which is an R20 zone, has as one of the conditional uses, the words hospital and clinics lumped together as a potential conditional use. In the other areas of the ordinance where it simply reads clinics. And so what I'm trying to do is bring these additional areas to be consistent with the R20 area and have them all read hospitals and clinics. And that's why you see it's in here 3 times under each different number, because that's your respective zones for neighborhood business, highway business, and general business. And all those, after the approval of this, would be hospitals and clinics are conditional use, instead of right now as they read simply just clinics. And again, that would be consistent with what's currently in place for our R20 zone. We believe that was also an inadvertent omission at the time of our zoning ordinance update at that time.
I would make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1537 for conditional use for hospitals.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the first reading of ordinance 1537, conditional use for hospitals. Any further questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that will also be second reading of December 3rd. New business number 5, personnel recommendations. What are your wishes?
Make a motion to approve personnel recommendations.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the personnel recommendations as presented. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Under announcements and other business, Jeff Heinemeyer has asked for time for an announcement. So, Jeff?
Yes, Mayor. give you a little background first. The city currently has, one of the bond issues that is outstanding is for a project that we did to build a generation plant located in the southeast section of town. That was approximately $4 million, of which there is about $3.5 million. I can't remember for sure how much is left outstanding right now currently. It goes till the year 2025. And as of late last week, it's a taxable bond issue, and I can get into why that is next week if you'd like the further details. In summary, interest rates have dropped dramatically on taxable bond issues just in the last 2 weeks since the election. And this just came up on Friday, late Friday, that it looks like it might be very financially feasible to refund those. And it's actually, I can get into that next week too, is exactly what that means. But we have a chance to save a significant amount of money, possibly, if this does take place. The first step would be the city commission adopting a bond resolution at a meeting. And that authorizes the mayor and myself to act on the city's behalf to actually follow through with a bond sale. It takes 20 days from publication for that resolution to become effective, and in the interim, there is a whole lot of different paperwork, official statements, and working out all the technicalities of conducting it. But with the rates where they are right now, I would suggest that we proceed with this. And again, adopting this resolution next week does not actually lock in any kind of a rate or a mandatory that we do this. It just, as you'll read, just authorizes us to proceed. So I can get into the further details next week, but I would like to just let you know that with your permission, I'd like to have a bond, actually he's already working on it, bond attorney in Minneapolis. You have to get a special kind of attorney to do this type of thing, and who is preparing it already. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
And again, if we don't do this, there is no obligation, financial obligation either. So let's set that clear too.
But time is of the essence to
Well,
get moving
these bond
before
issues
things
it's a hit and miss
start bouncing
thing.
around again.
You never know.
Yeah.
I'm one that, on these kind of deals, would rather get it done and lock in the savings, even if rates do drop a little more in the future. They could just as easily go up in the future too. Take away the savings.
Okay, if there's any issues with that, I'll look forward to that next week then, Jeff. Thank you very much for checking that out and bringing that in. That would conclude the items for the agenda. We have an executive session scheduled under SDCL 1-25-2(3). Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to go into executive session. About 6:04.